Okay, so my name is Marina. I graduated from Northeastern this past December, so December 2019. And I majored in computer science and business, and with focuses in artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. So like many women, I came into college with no programming experience, but I loved the way it taught me how to think objectively and independently. So although I really struggled during Fundies 1, and it took me a long time to overcome that learning curve, I just fell in love with how it taught me to approach problems from different perspectives. So worked hard, overcame the learning curve, and I was throughout college at Northeastern a tutor for Fundies 1. And then I also completed 4 co-ops at the NSA and 2 internships at Apple. All were in cybersecurity and machine learning applications. And then I graduated and I now work full-time at Apple as a machine learning and cybersecurity engineer. While I was at Northeastern, I became inducted as a member of Huntington 100, as well as I received the Most Outstanding Co-op Award for 2019. And now as an alum, I'm part of Northeastern's Young Global Leaders Program, where I work with President Aoun and the Board of Trustees, and we travel around the world to further Northeastern's global mission. So I've had lots of success, but there's been a lot of challenges to overcome to get to everything that I've accomplished throughout undergrad. None of it was easy. A lot of it was a lot of hard work. So I know everything that you guys are going through. And I kind of just want to open it up to you guys and see if you guys are more interested in talking about my classwork experience or my co-op and full-time job experience. So it's up to you guys. Any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Sure. So, I think that if members, we can like kind of do a poll in the chat. So just like you can put in the chat what you would rather hear about.
You're muted. You're muted, Marina.
Thank you. I feel like such a boomer. I don't know. When you graduate college, you just become technically inept. But for getting my jobs, I just applied online. And with regards to the NSA, I had to go through a background check, technical interviews, all that great stuff. And then I ended up doing 4 co-ops there. As I mentioned, they were all cybersecurity AI. And then at Apple, I got that internship from the Grace Hopper conference, actually. So I went up to the booth, I introduced myself and had a few technical interviews there on spot, and then further follow-up interviews on the phone afterwards, and then was hired. And my first summer there, I built a tool using machine learning, natural language processing, and semi-supervised learning to prioritize threats in their network. And then the next summer I came back and I built upon that tool to discover exactly where in their network these critical vulnerabilities can be found. So it was really exciting. Both were government and private sector, both very different sectors. And when deciding where to come full time, it was a really difficult decision. Of course, I had offers from both places, and then I had offers from several other companies as well. But I was pretty much between Apple and the government, just because I know I was going to learn a lot there, and I had a lot of good connections and a lot of good friends that I made there. And while these other places did offer me a lot more money to begin, ultimately what I decided is that the most important thing to me when starting my first job was to learn as much as I can. So, and I found that also to be true in my coursework as well, kind of applying that to my GPA. I cared about my GPA, and it is important, but I found that learning is the most important thing. And I think that is going to take you the farthest in life. And, you should care about your salary, you should care about your GPA. But I think what I have found is that having a motivation beyond all of that keeps me going, keeps me excited, keeps me energized, and all that good stuff. Another question. Okay. You had to deal with imposter syndrome, issues with sexism, and how did you handle those things? Definitely had imposter syndrome. I know I have accomplished a lot, but that has just come from a lot of hard work. Nothing ever came easy to me. I was never like, I hear something in the classroom and it just made sense. I really had to work hard outside of the classroom. And even when the semester ended, I was going over all my notes to make sure I understood things. And, if I didn't do so great on the final, I really made sure that I would go over it to make sure I understood the concepts, because when you're in those technical interviews and when you're in those job interviews, they really care the most about what you know. And yes, your GPA matters, but they just want to know what you know. And so that's why I think it's also important to make sure you understand what you're learning in the classroom. And if you don't get it the first time, that's fine. You have plenty of time to learn it. But yes, I did have imposter syndrome. During my first internship at Apple, I felt like so in over my head because I was building this whole tool from start to finish completely on my own. And it was a lot of responsibility, but I think that pushed me to work even harder because I didn't want to disappoint them. I didn't want them to think like, why did we hire her? So I worked really hard. And it turned out being really successful. When I presented it to the CSO, the Chief Information Security Officer, he was super impressed with it. They offered me a full-time job right on the spot after my first internship, but I still had more classwork to do. So couldn't take that one, came back for a second internship. And with regard to dealing with sexism, I personally, I know it exists. I haven't felt any experience towards that though. Yes, I'm definitely one of the very few women who work in the offices that I've been in, especially within cybersecurity. I don't think you find a lot of women in there, and within the AI field as well. But I've never felt at a disadvantage, or I've never felt like singled out. And I think what's important is that, a lot of recruiters right now are, you're here like, we have to hire more women, we need more diversity. And yes, that is great. We definitely want more women in the field. But I don't want you guys to ever think that you got a job or you got a co-op because you're a woman. You got that job because you are the best person for that job. And it's not because of your race or your gender. And I think that some people put too much emphasis on like, you're women, so you're going to get the job. But I think that kind of devalues why you got it. You got it because you're capable and you're going to do great things at it. Let's see, next questions.
I have a question. So what drew you to cybersecurity and AI to begin with? Because I know Northeastern, so it's like really foundational CS. We all take Fundies 1, Fundies 2, OD, Algo. So like what kind of like pushed you in that direction, and yeah, to the point at which you were building like such a cool tool on your next co-op?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that one of the many benefits of co-op is that you can explore things that you don't know about yet. I mean, computer science is such a big field and there's so many different avenues you could take. So I went into these co-ops having no cybersecurity experience, no AI experience, just wanted to do something new and see if I liked it. And there was no consequences. If I sucked at it, it's fine because I'm just a co-op, there's no harm can be done. But I found that I just loved the way that cybersecurity, you get to like think like a hacker and really impact the world in that way. And I also just fell in love with AI. So when I went back to school after my co-ops, I was able to take classes in these courses and further enhance my knowledge and return back to co-op and apply what I've learned, get more knowledge and go back to the classroom. So I'd say whatever you do on co-op, don't be afraid to try something that you don't know. You can totally be successful at it and you might just find what you want to do for the rest of your life. Just to kind of get a sense, are you guys more like first year, second year, middlers, or almost graduating?
You guys can put your answers in the chat. Oh.
Okay, first year, third year, first year, second year, third year. Okay. Sounds good. Yeah.
How did you, my name is Wendy. How did you navigate, nice to meet you. How did you navigate from like taking classes to your very first co-op or internship?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for those of you who haven't had a co-op experience yet, you're gonna love it. It's great because you can actually go to bed on time and you actually have weekends to do fun things. You don't have to do homework or study. But I remember going into my first co-op and I was pretty nervous. I had this imposter syndrome because at that point I'd only taken Fundies 1, Fundies 2, and Logic. I think those were the only three CS courses I had taken. So obviously I didn't have a ton of experience, but I was willing to work hard. And that is probably what will get you the farthest in your co-op experiences, because employers want to see that you're willing to learn and you're willing to work hard to get there. But also through working hard, you're inevitably going to be successful, because if you put in the work, you will learn. Eventually things will make sense, and you'll achieve great things. But I remember my first day on the job, my manager was like, okay, you're going to pull from master. And I didn't even know what version control was. I was so confused. So that first week after work, I would just go home and I watched YouTube videos on version control and all that sort of stuff. So, but I also worked with like 4 other co-ops on the team, and they probably had more experience going into it than me. But at the end, I definitely accomplished a lot more than all the other co-ops on my team. I had the opportunity to work on 3 different projects and really make an impact on them. So don't be nervous. You're going to be fine. If you don't feel like you know a lot, that's okay. Just be willing to work hard and ask questions. And from the chat, it looks like we've got some first years, some second years, and some third years mostly. So I assume a lot of you have probably been on maybe 1 or 2 co-ops by now. And you might be looking about a full-time position. So if you guys have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer those as well. Yeah. And other experiences I'd say that were a highlight of college was the Grace Hopper Conference. Northeastern sent me my sophomore year. And I hope you all go to that, because it's really impactful to meet and see other women who are just as passionate about our field. So I totally recommend that. I'm really glad that you guys are all doing NUWIT, because it's important to have a community of people that you connect with throughout college. And these girls will be your friends for life. And it's important to make the time to make these connections. I know in school, it's hard to make time for extracurriculars because CS is very demanding and it's very time consuming, but being in clubs like this is really important. You'll appreciate it later in life for sure. Let's see, other clubs I was in a sorority. I didn't love it. I joined as a middler and I felt like I joined a little too late. So it was kind of hard to meet people. But I wish I was more involved with NUWIT, because you guys are such a great group of girls and you guys are going to do such great things in the world.
Well, thanks for that, Marina. We have a question from Sanjana. So I just want to direct her.
Yes.
Thank you for coming. My question is, what was the best way you felt was like the way to like prepare for these technical interviews? Like, I guess like tips and tricks for those.
Yeah. Good question. So I got the Cracking the Coding interview book, and I'd also just like Google top 20 technical interview questions online, and I practiced those every single day. I'd practice a different one every day, and I'd also review the ones that I already practiced, and I'd try and find similar problems that involved like the same data structures and same type of algorithm, but a little bit different, because I wanted to make sure I'm not memorizing any kind of solution and that I know how to think on the spot. So the best way you can prepare for those is practicing those coding questions, writing them out on paper. Make sure you understand what is going on at every single step when you're practicing. Because like I said, you can't really memorize these things because they might change it a little bit. So the important thing is that you can understand the logic behind it. There's definitely been technical interviews where I got the question and I'm like, I don't know. Like, in my mind, I'm like freaking out. I don't know. And what you do in those situations is you just start talking, kind of asking questions to maybe better understand the question that you're trying to solve. And once you start writing something on the board, the question becomes less intimidating. And as you guys know, you're of course encouraged to ask your interviewer more questions to help guide your understanding and see if you're on the right path. So I encourage you guys to do that as well. And honestly, I found technical interview questions less intimidating than CS exams. So I think if you guys can ace those CS exams, you're going to be more than prepared for any technical interview you'll ever have. I also found that most often I prepared harder questions than I actually got asked.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, so a question I got is, why did you choose Apple as an employer over the government? Yes, so that's a great question. The reason why I applied to work for the government in the first place is because I feel that I've been given a lot of opportunities, and a lot of that has to do with being an American. So giving back to my country is something that really means a lot to me. It's really important. And I will say that when I worked at the government, I got up every single day excited to go to work, knowing that I'm going to go make a big impact in this world. I'll admit that working at Apple, I don't get that same feeling when I get up every morning. I get up every morning and I love my job, and it's challenging and it's interesting and I'm learning, but I'm not, I don't feel like I'm making as big of an impact in the world. But why I chose Apple over the government is because I felt that I was going to learn the most at Apple the quickest. And my goal in life, I'd love to start my own company. So I kind of had to choose between, making my impact now or getting as much knowledge as I can and doing it to get the skills later in life. And I think also with starting a company, I was going to network with more people that I would need to know at Apple. But with that said, it was a really, really difficult choice. There was no wrong choice I could have made. When it came to salary, honestly, they were pretty similar when you take into account cost of living in California, which is crazy. But I'd say it just kind of depends on your interests, and if you find a good office at Apple or if you find a good office at the government, you really can't go wrong. I also applied to several government contractors. And, like I mentioned, these people offered me a lot more money, but I didn't want to go the contractor route because I didn't think I was going to learn as much.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you're done. Oh, I was just wondering, what are like some things that you did outside of like school and like fundies and like actual classes that kind of sparked your interest in this field?
That's such a great question. So I did a lot of hackathons. I loved hackathons. I thought it was so fun to just get together with my friends, and I didn't love staying up 24 hours because I like to sleep, but I loved having this finished project at the end of a hackathon that probably would have taken me like half a semester to complete. And I loved getting to explore things I hadn't done yet in a hackathon. So in my first hackathon, I created an iOS app for TripAdvisor that alerts users on attractions they missed while traveling. So it's kind of like a funny app. And then another hackathon that I won an award in was one where I used natural language processing to analyze the risk scores of vulnerabilities written in news articles. Before that hackathon, I didn't have any natural language processing experience, but I learned a lot in those 24 hours. And I think that was probably the best way I learned outside of the classroom. I did a few projects, like side projects outside, but I think the hackathons are the most fun. Let's see, another question. So what is your favorite coding language, and what language do you think you use / have the most used or use the most? That would be Python. I think Python's so great because it's so versatile. Especially when it comes to machine learning or deep learning, a lot of the libraries are built in Python, so it's just really easy to use them. I also work a lot with Scala, Spark, these big data technologies. Don't love them as much. I liked Racket. I think Racket's fun. I don't use it at all ever. Java's good to know. A lot of, if you have like a typical software engineering position, you'll probably be using something like Java or C++. But for the field of cybersecurity and machine learning, just a lot of Python, which is great. So Python's my favorite. And I know they don't teach you guys Python in any of your classes, or at least none of the classes I took, but it's a super easy language to pick up. Once you understand Java, Python's like going to be your best friend because there's so much less syntax and it's just a lot easier. So I encourage you guys to just, if you don't know Python, you just look into it. You'll probably learn it within like a few hours because it's really just that simple. Yeah. And there's a lot of, like, if you guys are interested in machine learning, there's a lot of great online resources. There's a website called Kaggle, which you can do like online machine learning competitions, which is really fun. And they also have a lot of tutorials on Python within that. So that's a good place to start to learn how, like, feature engineering and data analysis. Okay, another question. Do you have any tips on building a strong resume? That's a great question. Yes, your resume is very important. You want to have several people look over it because you don't want any typos in it. For building a strong resume, mine's like a normal format. Let's see, I start with my work experience and then I go to my research experience. So I did some independent research at Northeastern, and then I go to my projects, my leadership experience, and then my awards and honors. I think that to build a strong resume, you want concise but detailed bullets. You don't want anything to be too vague or too detailed. I mean, whoever's reading it, they want to go through it pretty quick and get a good idea of what you did and who you are. And you don't want to confuse them in any way. But I think that the co-op advisors at Northeastern are really great, especially that co-op class. It's really great in helping you build a good resume. And I know if you're first year, you don't have a ton of side project experiences. I know a lot of my friends would just put classwork projects on it, which is fine. Obviously, when you're applying for a full-time job, you don't want, I have no class projects on my resume now because I've done so many projects outside of class. But it's fine to have them on your resume when you're just beginning or you're even a middler. It's totally fine. Let's see more questions. What do you look for in a company to determine if their culture is a good fit with your personality? That's a good question. I'd say that is not as important to me. I think that what matters the most to me is what work am I going to be doing and can I really make an impact in that work? I'd say culture is important, but I think what you do in your job is more important. I'm sure that like anywhere you go, you'll have nice people and friends to talk to. Most of my team now is like in their 30s and 40s and have younger kids. So we don't have a ton in common, but I love them. I still talk to them all the time. We get along very well. So I don't know, culture's a hard one. I also think I kind of have a personality that just fits in anywhere. I can adapt to any kind of situation. So I don't have a great answer on that one, but I would say that what you do is the most important thing when you're looking for a company. Okay, more questions. Do you have advice on how to network? Yes, that's another good question. You guys ask very good questions. I'm very proud. So I would say that don't be afraid to just go up and talk to anybody, because everybody is very welcoming and excited that someone would come up and talk to them. No one's just gonna walk away from you. They always say have that elevator pitch, so that's always a nice thing to prepare. Just kind of keep it short. Be like, hey, my name's this. I do this. I do this. Nice to meet you. Experiences that I don't know how networking is over Zoom. I feel bad for you guys because I'm sure that's a little difficult, but I'm sure you guys are managing it awesome. But when you're in person and when you guys are able to go back to the classroom, Northeastern has a ton of events that you don't really hear about. But if you go into the events page or something, and I'm not just talking about within Corey, I'm talking about like Northeastern overall. There's events where you'll get to meet like the board of trustees. You'll get to meet like very successful entrepreneurs. And I recommend going to those events. They're open to students, and the Women Who Empower events, you'll meet a lot of successful people there as well who can help you along with your career. And like I said, at those events, just don't be afraid to go up and talk to someone and introduce yourself. Be friendly and have a smile on your face, and don't be intimidated by networking. It's much easier than taking a CS exam or all the hard work that you guys do in class. Okay, next question is, what are things you did that you feel helped distinguish you as a candidate than applying to your first co-op or any other position? Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say things that distinguish me are what I've been able to achieve. And I think the way I think about problems as well. In the classroom, I'm not afraid to go beyond the material that you're expected to know. I ask a lot of questions that probably people wouldn't care about because they don't need to know it for an exam. But for me, I love to learn. So I want to know these things. And that's really set me off on a path where I'm not afraid to question what has already been done. I'm not afraid to explore alternative solutions. And I think that's what's really made me successful on my co-op experience and intern experience. I've won several awards at the government and a lot of recognition at Apple for being able to invent for being able to solve problems that hadn't been solved yet. And I think the way that, hard work and self-discipline, that's all part of it. But I think what allows me to think differently is just not being afraid to ask questions and go into depth, and being able to challenge the status quo. So I think that's probably what distinguishes me the most from other candidates. And when you add up all of these experiences where I've done that, you get a good looking resume, a good looking candidate. And I'd say like all these things in life, they're great. They're important. They matter. But I think that the reason I'm able to think like this is because I love to learn and I want to know more. And I really do want to make an impact in this world. So my motivation goes far beyond like any GPA, any amount of salary, any amount of awards. I want to make an impact, and that's what really drives me.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What's something you have failed at, like quote unquote failed at, but wasn't really a failure, but kind of pushed you on to like greater things?
Yes, of course, there's plenty of those. Give me a quick second to think about a good one, because there's a lot. Let's see. So, let's see. I would say, I know I've kind of touched upon this already, but it truly is something that is what has made me who I am today. I'd say I wasn't like the best student. Not that I didn't work hard. I worked very, very hard, but I wasn't great at taking exams. So I didn't get great grades on exams, so I guess in a way that was my failure. But I always made sure I went over what I missed. I wasn't disappointed in myself. But I also didn't just, push it in a binder and not look at it ever again. I really took the time to go through all of the questions that I missed and to make sure I truly understood it. If I didn't understand it, I made sure that I would go into the professor and just go over it with them, and I never asked like to improve my grade or anything. That's, I don't know, I just couldn't do that. But I just wanted to make sure that I understood what I was supposed to understand. And, you know, sometimes after a final, that's a little bit more difficult because you go home after the semester. But, you know, that's kind of when self-discipline comes in, is like, I still made an effort to go over what I missed to make sure I understood it. Even, you know, over winter break, when you kind of just want to watch Netflix and do whatever, I still made the time to do something like that. And I think that that is why I remember a lot from what I learned. I didn't just learn it and forget it. I remember it and I'm able to apply it on my job. And I think I saw some more questions in the chat. Okay. What is the most impactful advice you have received about your career, and how do you approach finding a mentor? So, okay. Most impactful, I would say, you know, I talk a lot about when I was choosing my full-time position, I ended up choosing based on how much I was going to learn. And that was the biggest deciding factor. And I'd say that was really, it came a lot from my dad and my brothers. I've got 3 older brothers. They all work in finance. I was definitely more intrigued to like go for the higher salary. But I think like the best advice they gave me is that you're at a young age and, you know, you have plenty of time to do whatever for the rest of your life, but this is the time where you can ask questions and there's no like harm to it. You can really explore what you want to know. So yeah, I think that's probably, I mean, there's a lot of good advice I've gotten, but I think, you know, that's definitely part of it. And advice I'd give to you guys, kind of following up on that, just find a motivation to do well in this world beyond external factors, you know, beyond like money, awards, or anything. Find the motivation within yourself, because it will drive you to do better. And you'll never be stressed. I admit, before I started thinking like this throughout college, I always felt pretty stressed out. And right now in my job, I work very hard. Let's see, I'm a lead on a cross-functional project. I do a ton of different machine learning applications for the team. I do a lot of detection engineering. So I work hard, but I probably haven't been like, I haven't experienced this minimal amount of stress since like lower school. So I think that it's really important that you figure out a way to manage stress that you can still be successful. You don't have to choose between, you know, being stressed and being successful. And I think something in our society is they really push stress like as a badge of honor. Like if you're not stressed out, like, oh, you didn't work hard enough. And I totally get that. But I think that you'll be more successful in life if you figure out how to work your hardest without letting it consume you, without letting it stress you out too much. And it's a hard thing to do, trust me. It's something that takes a lot of practice, a lot of self-reflection, but it's totally possible. And I think that's probably like the best advice I could give to you guys. My questions, love your questions. Okay, so what is the best piece of advice you have received in your career? I think we just did that one. Okay.
Another question Emily asked was, how do you approach finding a mentor? And I think that's like really helpful for when you kind of feel a little isolated in CS. So
yeah, I'm lucky because at my internship at Apple, the mentor that I had, my first internship, she wasn't my mentor. She wasn't on my team, but I met her in the bathroom and we just started talking, and I don't know, we just had a good conversation and connected. And she happened to be like a data science engineer. And since then we have just been really close. She's a big reason that I went back to Apple, because I knew I had a great mentor there. She's probably like the biggest reason, because she has taught me so much. But with regards to finding a mentor, I don't know, I never really went out of my way to ask someone to be my mentor. I think that I have a good head on my shoulders. And there wasn't a ton of questions I had for someone. But I think that at networking events, you meet people and you realize that, you know, you connect with them. And I think over time you build this bond, you build this relationship, and they just kind of become your mentor. I know that's not the same experience for everybody. I know some people just go up and ask someone to be their mentor, maybe online or something, and that's fine. That's totally a valid way to do it. But this is how I've done it.
I have a question, if no one. Okay. You mentioned you were a CS and business major, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So do you like find yourself using like some skills you picked up from your business classes?
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, I'll say one of the reasons why I wanted to get a business degree in the first place is because I don't want to be an engineer forever. As I've mentioned, I'm really passionate about starting my own business. So I need those additional skills. But I'd say that in the business school, they have you do a ton of presentations. And that will take you pretty far in life. I think in Corey, I really didn't present that often. So if you don't get a ton of experience, but my business classes kind of made up for that. And I'd also say that I took a ton of like entrepreneurship classes in the business school, and there's a lot more to starting a business than you'd think. And I think those will be very helpful and very impactful for me later in life. I also took a class, negotiating in business. Even if you're not a business major, I recommend you guys take that class because you need to know how to negotiate in life. You just do, whether it's your salary or like anything else really, but importantly, like your salary or job or anything, like it's a good skill to have. It's a very good skill to have. So I recommend taking that class. It was a great class. I learned a lot. Another class that you guys will never hear this from anybody else, but there's a class called mindfulness, and it is so great. You meditate and you get to do a lot of self-reflection. It's like a 3-credit course. We met like once a week, on Wednesday nights. And that's a really nice class, to give you like life skills as well, learning how to manage stress, learning how to breathe and meditate and do yoga. That's all really good to know. And then if you guys want like a fun class to take, there's like one called Entrepreneurship for Marketing and Selling. And we just watched Shark Tank a lot, and class discussions were just like about the Shark Tank episode. So that's a really fun one if you guys want a fun class. But yes, point being, my business degree has definitely helped me in the CS field, and it will even more so later in life. And I think being a combined major is a really great path because you get to, like, if you're passionate about 2 different things, you get to get a degree in both things, but you don't have to stay like extra time, which is really nice. I also have studied abroad. So I was in Australia, and then I've been speaking Mandarin for 8 years. So I went to China. I recommend studying abroad. It's really fun. You'll meet a lot of friends there. My study abroad was earlier in my college career. For me, when I was in Corey, they didn't have a ton of classes you could take abroad once you got to your upper level CS classes. But at the beginning, it was super fun. And I recommend you guys do that if you can, or like a dialogue or something, or even if you can't, just definitely travel after college. Like when I graduated, I then went to Asia, and then I went to India and started and like meditated in ashram for a while. So I think it's good to know how like other cultures around the world, and it's really fun. So I recommend that. I think another challenge I had in college was because I co-opted so much, I had to move every 4 months, which was such a pain. I hate moving now. I never want to move again, but I will say, like, and by the way, none of my co-ops were in Boston. They were in DC or California. It was worth it, obviously, because, the experience is really good and you get to do a lot of great things. But I know the moving is a pain. If you guys are in similar situations where you have to move out of state for co-op, it's worth it. I recommend it. But I will say it's challenging to come back to campus and maintain those same connections and friendships with people. there's definitely people I'm really close with and it wasn't a problem. It's like I came back and nothing changed. But I will say you have to make an effort. It's not just like so simple. I think, and a lot of your friends do stay in Boston during co-op and they do get to like hang out and you're not there, and or maybe your friends are off cycle so you never see them because you go out of state. And I will say it's tricky to maintain those relationships, but it's possible, and you do have to work hard at it though, to connect with people and text your friends when you get back to campus. Okay, so let's see. What would you say helped you the most to get your dream job? I say that I know I love my job. I'm very lucky, but it's not my dream job. My dream job is to start my own company, and I'm definitely going to do it. That's what I'm most passionate about in life. But I think that I'm in a really good place and I love what I do. And what helped me get here is just hard work and self-discipline. Everybody needs those skills. And you will have it within you. I know sometimes, you feel a little lazy, and that's fine, but remember that those skills will take you so far in life, because you'll be surprised how few people are willing to work hard. But I don't think that sets you apart. I think working hard should be like standard. That should be bare minimum. What I think, as I mentioned, sets me apart is that I'm not afraid to go beyond the material. I'm not afraid to think about solutions that haven't been explored yet. And so I encourage you guys to just try and think from different perspectives, think independently, and think objectively. And I think that will take you far in life. And, maybe you don't have to think like that, but figure out like what way you can approach problem solving that makes sense to you. And I think you'll find success. Okay, so what is your favorite project you've ever worked on? Anything with machine learning. I love it so much. I did independent research at Northeastern where I used machine learning to improve anomaly-based detections. I'd say that was a good one. I also really enjoyed my internships at Apple because I created a tool that they still use and it's still implemented for them. And so it wasn't like a waste of my work. It wasn't like a waste of summers or anything. So perhaps that's my favorite project, just because it actually adds value to Apple, which I like to add value. I like to be useful. Let's see. Can you speak to the differences between your experiences at Apple and the DoD, culturally, work-life balance, etc.? Of course. So, as I mentioned, I loved working for the DoD. I think that serving your country is a very meaningful and impactful thing to do. I also loved it because you can't take your work home with you. So every day after work, like my friends and I, we would just get to hang out, have fun. We'd play poker, we'd have movie nights. And on the weekends, we would go on hikes, or we'd go into Baltimore or DC and have fun. So I loved my life there. And I've made so many meaningful connections just from the other co-ops I worked there. Like those are my best friends. And they have a great co-op program there where they have a ton of co-op activities. So after work, like you don't have to go home and sit on a couch. Like they have things for you to do. And culturally, like I've had no bad experience at either place. Culturally, they're different because one's government, one's private. Beyond that, they're both amazing places, and they're different, but they're both great. Work-life balance, it depends on your team. Work-life balance at the government, it's good because you only work 8 hours a day and then you go home. At Apple, it's a little bit different. It depends on a team. My first summer, I worked really, really hard. I was working like, 10 or 12 hours a day on an internship. But my second summer I was on a different team and it was more like an 8-hour job. So it's really dependent on your team there. But they're both great places to work. You really just can't go wrong. Okay, let's see. So Oh, my office friends, see you senior year. Okay. And then did you ever deal with burnout? I know you've mentioned your mindfulness class, but is there anything else that has helped? Oh my gosh, yes, I've had burnout for sure. I think that I've, like, as I mentioned, I've had a very strong work ethic. But it's hard when you worked really hard, but you didn't get that grade that you wanted. And so it can cause a little bit of burnout. You don't know what else you could have done better. And that's also when my mindset shifted to learning for the sake of learning instead of learning for a grade or learning for a desired outcome. Like the motivation really came from within myself. And that's when I got excited. That's when I got really happy to walk into that classroom every day knowing that I'm going to go learn something completely new. And it didn't feel like work to me anymore. It didn't feel stressful. And so I think that finding a desire to work hard from within yourself will help a lot with stress and will help a lot with burnout. I'm also really into meditation and yoga. I get up at 4 a.m. every day and I meditate and I do my yoga and then I do my workout and then I start work. So I think things that have really helped me manage stress is like my meditation. It's hard to meditate at first because you just kind of sit there and you have all these thoughts going on in your head. It gets easier over time. Now I can sit there and my mind's completely blank. But that takes a lot of time and a lot of practice. And it's not every day for me. It's, still some days I'm not great at it, but even just sitting there with your eyes closed for 5 minutes will make a difference. I would say working out is a really good way to clear my head and help me from getting too stressed. We all know that sleep is a good thing, but that's hard to do in college because, if you have an exam or you have an assignment, you got to stay up and do it. And you just do the best that you can. It will get easier after college. You'll get more sleep, I promise. But yeah, there's definitely some ways that I have figured out how to manage my stress throughout college. And I recommend that whatever it is for you guys, make sure to make the time for that. It doesn't have to be like meditation or yoga or whatever. Maybe it's like doing a puzzle or cooking or something. But I recommend making time for that because life is about more than just being stressed all the time. When you look back on those years, you don't want to remember feeling so stressed. Like you don't have to, like I said, you don't have to choose between success and being lazy or something. Like you can have success and also not stress out about it and enjoy your life. And, you want to be happy in life and don't wait to be happy in life. Just be happy now. So make sure you're taking the time to find ways to just be happy and not stress out too much, which I know is hard, but it's possible. Okay, let's see. How did you for co-ops? Did it ever feel tiring and how did you handle that? No, I love work. So I did 4 co-ops and 2 internships. I never felt tired after those. I love to work. I really thrive in the workplace because I get to just like go off and explore so many different avenues and learn a ton. And I'm not as constrained as I can sometimes be other places. But yeah, I know work is like, it depends on your job. Like I've just been lucky where I've gotten amazing internships and co-ops and every single experience was a really good experience. I get that is not what everyone else experiences. I know that there's some people who just get unlucky and it's no fault of their own. They just didn't have a great mentor, they didn't have a great project, and I totally get it. And in those situations, I guess what I probably would have done is, if I was in a situation where I didn't have a lot of work, I probably would have been constantly asking my manager, like, what can I do? What can I do? Or I just would have gone off and observed the team and figured out where they might be lacking in something. And I would have tried to go do it as a side project. Okay, so do you have any advice for students who may be struggling with any classes and as a result feel discouraged as if they're not good enough to pursue CS? Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, that was me. My first semester, even though I worked really hard, I was getting like C's on my exams, C's on my homework. It was really hard. And at first I honestly didn't think I was smart enough to do it. But everybody else around me was like my cheerleaders at that time. And they're the ones who like encouraged me to believe in myself. And eventually I got over the learning curve and things did click. And if you're in a similar situation, don't give up. You are smart enough and you can do it. Like Northeastern accepted you for a reason, because they know you're smart enough and they know that you are capable of doing anything. And they're there to support you. So don't ever feel like you can't do something. Everybody starts at the beginning. And, you know, you might meet people who have been coding for a long time and they're super good at it. So it looks like you're so far behind, but just remember they were in your position that you're in now as well. Everybody struggles at the beginning or at some point. So just keep going. That's when self-discipline really comes in handy. You know, oftentimes I felt like I studied over going to parties or something because I didn't understand what I learned in class that day. And you make those sacrifices, but in the end, it's totally worth it. Totally worth it. So just work hard and it will come. I went to a lot of office hours. Let's see. Big fan of meditation and yoga as well. Yay, that's so great to hear. Yeah, I think yoga and meditation is awesome. I love it so much. I'm glad to hear that you guys are in it. And I definitely recommend that mindfulness class. It's a really nice class. I just found it because I was kind of bored one day and I was going through whatever that banner thing is where you sign up for classes. And I was like, what other classes are at Northeastern? And I randomly found it and I signed up and I loved it. So it's good times. Yeah. I don't see any other. Okay, go ahead.
Was someone else talking? I was just gonna ask if Emily, do you have any more questions in the survey?
I think that was most of them. One of them was, do you necessarily need to learn technologies like Swift and work in an Apple ecosystem?
Sure. No, you don't. I don't know Swift, or I have used Swift before in the past, but I don't remember any of it. I probably couldn't code in it now. But I worked within the information security department. So we protect Apple's internal network from any threats or vulnerabilities. So nobody in my department does Swift. We don't do security for Apple products either. We just do it for Apple's internal network. I mean, if you wanted to work on like the iOS team, I assume Swift would be a good thing to know. But no, you do not have to know Swift to work at Apple.
All right. And
I was going to say, even if you wanted to do like a machine learning internship there, I would assume you probably wouldn't have to know Swift.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your insight. I want to give you an opportunity to, sorry, I just dropped something. I want to give you an opportunity to have any like last remarks. You've been such a wealth of information and knowledge and inspiration. So if there's anything you want to say to like cap it all off or really like leave with us as we kind of come away from this meeting.
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you guys for listening and for being here. As I said, I know this is like the worst week of the semester. So I feel for you guys. Good luck on all your homeworks and projects in the exams. You guys will do great. But yeah, I think just takeaway is that don't worry about trying to be the best. Don't worry about trying to like be the top person in class and trying to know everything. That is not how I found success. And it's really just through hard work and not being afraid to question the status quo and do things differently. And I recommend that you guys all start to think like that, because if you do, like, success will be inevitable. And I know you guys can all do it. I believe in you guys and I'm here for you guys. If you guys ever wanted advice on anything, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm a little bad with responding, so if I don't respond right away, just give me a little bit of time. I promise I'll get there, but I'm always happy to help you guys in any way I can. And just keep doing what you're doing, because you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you so much. That was wow. I have like a lot of things to think about. I have a lot of things to reflect on. So probably the sign of a good meeting if I'm reflecting a lot. And I hope that's the case for the rest of you guys. Let us know if you enjoyed this meeting by like shooting us an email. I think Emily has like a feedback survey sometimes, but I have a feeling this was great for everyone else too. And thanks for giving us your hour. I'm sure your time is super, super valuable.
Anytime, I'm happy to.
Oh, and we have a
I will type in my name. Let me see if I can find my yeah, if you'll see, okay, whatever, like my picture is like me with my grad cap on, and then my profile is like Huntington 100, young global leader, AI cybersecurity engineer. So yes, feel free to add me. If you guys can't find me, Terry, just shoot me an email. If no one can find me, you guys should be able to find, but shoot me an email and I'll send you the link.
Put you in the chat, so your LinkedIn is taken care of.
Thank you.
And with that, you guys are dismissed to do whatever you want to do for the rest of the evening. All right, bye.
Bye.
Thank you.